What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Rocco's Kitchen. It is getting cold outside, leaves are coming off the trees, and we are in fall. Now, one of my favorite fall winter dishes ever is going to be shepherd's pie, and that's what we're making tonight. So, as always, salute. Let's get started. Alright guys, we are making a beef and lamb shepherd's pie. So what we got here is a chuck roast and some lamb shanks that we are going to braise with carrot, celery, onion, or your mirepoix, some red wine, some beef stock, crushed tomatoes, some garlic, bay leaves, rosemary, and some thyme. Later on, we're going to add some peas and some more carrot to that and thicken it up with some tomato paste. On top is our mashed potatoes. So we got our potatoes, our heavy cream, our butter. We're going to use 2 egg yolks in there and some Parmesan cheese. Let's get cooking. So to start, we're going to get our mashed potatoes working. Cut our potatoes, peel them, and just cut them in a little bit smaller pieces that are uniform. That way they all cook evenly. I'll save you a little cooking time. I also like to have a pot of water right next to me. Once you peel your potatoes and cut into them, they will start turning brown as soon as that air starts touching them. The faster you get them in the water, the less brown they'll turn. Ooh. I'm just using 4 russet potatoes for this guy. Should give me enough to cover shepherd's pie quite nicely. I'm going to get that on the stove, get it simmering away till they're fork tender, and we'll get started with the rest. Alright guys, potatoes are on, so now we're going to start with our filling. We're going to start by cutting up our mirepoix, dicing it up. Peel our carrots. Mirepoix is just your celery, carrots, and onion. I'm not going to be... It's going to be more of a small rough chop on these guys, because this is just for the braising part. And go into the carrots that we're going to add later on. We'll dice those up real nice and pretty. Carrots, bottom off your celery. Do that. Got 3 stalks of celery here. 3 smaller carrots. We're going to use half this onion. Set half aside, you're going to use that later as well. Dice your onion, take the bottom off. Peel off that skin. Make some slits, don't cut all the way through the top. We'll hold it together for you. Turn it, cut the other way. Get a nice diced onion. There's your mirepoix. We're going to start with browning the meat. We're just going to leave these lamb shanks whole and braise them like that with this chuck roast. I'm going to cut down into a little bit smaller cubes. About 1-inch cubes or so. It doesn't have to be too pretty. It's going to be falling apart by the time it's done. Season this guy pretty heavily with salt and pepper. All this meat. We're going to start browning it in a cast iron Dutch oven. Let's get that Dutch oven hot. Alright guys, got my Dutch oven nice and hot. Got my vegetable oil up to smoke point, which means it just started to smoke before I added the meat. And what you're going to want to do is add your meat in portions, so you don't overcrowd your pot. If you add it all of it at one time and it's too close to each other, it'll cool down your pot. You're not going to get a nice browning. So I'm just going to add it. Probably it's going to take me about 3 times. Take that out, I'll add some more meat. And about 3 minutes per side, give me a nice brown sear on that guy. Oh my God, guys, look at that pile of meat. It is going to be delicious. All right, so our meat is browned. Now we are going to start building this dish. I'm just going to take that same pan, oil still nice and hot. I'm going to throw in that mirepoix that we cut up. Also, got about 7 cloves. Those are big cloves, so 7 big cloves of garlic. They're just peeled and crushed, and throw that in there too. We're going to let that saute until the vegetables get nice and tender. Our vegetables are getting nice and sauteed. Our next step is going to be deglazing with our red wine. Just about a cup of red wine, maybe a little less. I'm going to let that cook down, simmer away. Till about half of that liquid's gone. All right, a good bit of that wine is evaporated. It is smelling amazing in here. It's time to add your meat back to the pan. Once you got your meat in there, you're going to add your crushed tomatoes. And your beef stock, also going to turn the heat down to about medium for now. And now we're going to add our stock until it's about 3/4 of the way up the meat. Braising, you want your liquid about 3/4 of the way up, as high as the meat goes. Look at that. It was beautiful. Also, I took my rosemary and thyme and bay leaves and I tied them together so that I can pull them out when it's done cooking. You could chop it up real fine and just throw the bay leaves in whole and pull the bay leaves out later. Rosemary is pretty hard to chew, so I like tying it up and pulling it out later. I'll throw that in there. Give it a nice stir. Just make sure it's all marrying together nicely. I'm going to season. A little more salt, a little more pepper, not too much. You can adjust that at the end, but you do want to build your seasoning as you go. Let's get that in there. It already smells amazing. Alright, so now I'm going to bring that to a simmer. I'm going to let it sit at a simmer covered for about an hour, and then I'm going to check on it. Take the lid off. It's probably going to end up simmering for another hour without the lid on until that meat is just falling apart. Alright, so our meat is simmering away back there. Let's go ahead and get our mashed potatoes going. So the potatoes finished up while we were putting the meat together. So as you can see here, I like to use a ricer for my mashed potatoes for the shepherd's pie because I think it makes the lightest mashed potatoes. And shepherd's pie is a really heavy dish, so I think lightening up the potatoes goes very well. You could just use a regular smasher if you want, or throw it in a KitchenAid and do that way. I'm going to add a stick of butter. Oop. My 2 egg yolks. Just a little heavy cream. And my Parmesan cheese. Grate that in. Oh, there's going to be a chunk of cheese in there. That will be just fine. I'm going to add a little salt to start and fold that together. Don't want to work it too much. The potatoes will get gummy. They won't be nice and light and airy. That is looking good. Let's taste it. Need some more salt. Need some more cheese too. We'll add some more salt. Add some more cheese. That should be delicious. Tiny bit more salt, tiny bit more cheese. We're gonna be good to go. Yep, that is good. Still nice and light. Now we got our mashed potatoes done, set to the side. I just cover those with a towel. They can sit there until we build the rest of the dish later. Ran out of beer, so I got myself a little bourbon. Delicious. And what we're going to do now, this is optional. I like to do this because those vegetables in there, while you're braising it, are going to break down. They're going to get real mushy. And the meat's kind of mushy. And your mashed potatoes, obviously, mushy. So I like to have some crisp vegetables in it. I'm going to saute them later and just so they're cooked, not raw, but a little crisper, have a little bite to them. So I'm just going to take another half an onion, the other half of the onion, dice that up. And dice up like 4 more carrots. These guys, I like to cut them in half so they're more manageable. Cut them into sticks. It's real easy to just cut them into dices after that. Also, for this one, I'm using lamb shanks. Lamb shanks were on sale, and I know that's gonna braise nicely and fall apart, but you could use lamb stew meat, or I've even used a package of like 1 pound ground lamb and just cooked it off and added it later instead of braising it, because lamb's so damned expensive. Usually just go with the cheapest method for that one, but with the shanks, it's a nice cut. The bones are going to add a lot of nice flavor to that dish. Them being on sale, went with those shanks, and that's going to turn out really nice. Ooh. Might lose a finger or two. That's okay. That's what the bourbon's for. Cut off a finger, you just rub it with some bourbon, sear it on the grill. It'd be just fine. So like I said, these vegetables, that's just a preference of mine. You don't have to do this part. Also, I've seen people just use ground meat. But if you do it this way, I do think you will end up with a superior shepherd's pie. Alright, so I'm just going to finish dicing this up. Once that meat is nice and tender, I'll get back to you, and we'll put the rest of this dish together. Look at that. So our meat got nice and tender. So all I did was pull the meat apart and discard those lamb bones, and I pulled that bunch of herbs out. We got a couple rosemary leaves in there. It's going to be fine. So now I'm going to just transfer this mixture to another, like a Tupperware or something, just to hold it while I saute those other carrots and onions and the tomato paste to add to it. Remember, that step is completely optional. You could just go right from here, add your mashed potatoes, and go into the oven. But I'm going to show you what I do. The pan's nice and hot with the oil. Add my carrots and onions. Stir. Salt, a little pepper. I'm just going to let that cook for about a minute, stirring it. The whole point of this is to have the crisp carrots in there. You don't want them to be too cooked and get mushy. Stir about a minute. Add about a tomato paste. That sauce was already pretty thick, so we don't need too much. Also, at this time, I got my oven heating up to about 475. So we're gonna, after this is ready, put the mixture back in, peas in, stir it up, spread the mashed potatoes, go into the oven, and let those mashed potatoes brown up. Those onions are getting translucent, and turn the heat down. Add my tablespoon of tomato paste. Spread that around with the vegetables. You want to let your tomato paste cook a little bit. If you don't, it'll taste like raw tomato paste in the final product. That's no good. Just takes a minute. Alright, that's good. Now we're going to add our filling back in. Add our peas to it. Look at that. That's amazing. And smells quite good as well. We're just going to let that simmer on low for about 10 minutes. Let that tomato paste marry with everything else. All these flavors come together. Also taste it. Adjust your seasonings. Salt and pepper. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Let that simmer for 10 minutes. And now it's time to add our potatoes. Just let's try to spread that out as best you can. That's gonna be fine. We're gonna go into the oven for about 20 minutes at 475, or just until those potatoes start to brown. Our potatoes are nice and browned on top. Let's get a scoop of this bad boy out. Alright, it is time to eat. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah. That looks and smells amazing. Check this out. There you have it, folks. Delicious beef and lamb shepherd's pie. All that's left is to eat, and I'm starving, so I will see you next time.